Good morning, Vikings fans. How's that for an intro? This is Morning Joe's. I am Joe Johnson. I'm in a good mood. I'm caffeinated. I'm ready to avoid a trap game. I own Purple PTSD. You hate the trap game notion.
Qualify. We established this Tuesday or Wednesday night.
We've also established that I have the memory of a goldfish, so... I own PurplePTSD.com, Vikings Territory. I co-host the Purple Journal podcast. That is also co-hosted by the co-host of this show, Joe Oberle.
Hello. I'm trying to get caffeinated. I'm not in a good mood. And,
You're the anti-Joe.
I am. I'm Bizarro World Joe today.
Joe writes for Purple PTSD, Vikings Territory. He's the editor of those sites, which is why they're so classy. And he also writes for the Sports Post. So before we get into anything, what is your aversion, not enough caffeine, to the trap game narrative? Is it just because of the team specifically, or just in general?
It starts initially with the whole idea of the trap game because I'm not a big fan of cliches, and I'm more understanding, at least my understanding of the way this league works. Everybody's so close together that the idea of a trap game doesn't exist. I mean, any given Sunday, there's a cliche that I have more adhere to, because I think anybody can beat anybody if you're not ready to play. You can have the best game plan laid out, and if your players are limping in mentally to the game, they're going to get it handed to us. And I think that's what happened in Buffalo. There's no way they should have lost that game, and they had, I think, it's not a segue yet, but the whole Everson Griffin thing affected that, and their minds were not right for that game. I mean, they overlooked them. They had some inner turmoil, and they had just had this game against the Packers, which they should have, could have won, but didn't win. And I just think your mental attitude has a lot to do with it sometimes. And yes, this is a really rotten team coming in here. They won last week, so they figured something out. But to talk to some of your points that you're going to say, I mean, they got a new coach. I think they have a new offensive coordinator. They got a new quarterback after 3 weeks, and they're trying to adjust and figure out who the heck they are. So
it's not like super controversial to say that more so than any other sport, the NFL is. The parity that's everyone always talks about is the teams are so close together.
What separates them is really small. It's really true.
It really is.
The players will say that too, because they're all pretty good athletes now. The bad coach or a bad personnel guy who gets a bunch of lesser players in there, and they stop believing. I don't know. I understand trap games exist. Yes, one team on paper should beat another team, but
I can see too how other teams benefit from it, how they weaponize it, bulletin board material. I think a perfect example of that is, and I think it was Luke, maybe off air or on air, could have been Tyler when he was over watching the game with me last week, but. It basically dismantling the notion that the Eagles were these huge underdogs, which is something that they latched onto with masks and everything during the playoffs last year, especially against the Vikings. They were playing at home. They clearly had a really good offense not so much in the Falcons game, but against the Vikings and against Belichick and the Patriots. So they weren't these gigantic, David versus Goliath type situations, but it worked. It's totally,
right.
And it worked for them though. I mean, they latched onto that. And I mentioned this on Purple Journal, but I forget which defensive player of the Vikings said this, but he said that they seem to the Vikings seem to perform best when they feel like they're backed into a corner,
Yes.
and that he said, "I wish we could play like that all the time." So that's another.
Zimmer likes to play on that. He hates being the top dog. He hates being the guy they're gonna win the whole thing. He likes flying under the radar and people overlooking them and then surprising the heck out of them. You're right. That's a good point. And that goes to what I'm saying. Those guys had the proper mental attitude to beat anybody because they said, we have nothing to lose. I mean, you and I talked about this last year where Foles came in there and nobody gave him a chance, and he just said, I'm just going to go out and play. If I lose, I wasn't supposed to win. If I win, I play well and win, all the better for me. So, I think it's one of those things that can. Luke and I have gone back and forth on this before too, because he's a numbers guy and he knows how to figure out how and why teams win or lose. But so often for me, I see teams that are flat, and you can see no matter what plan they have, if they aren't mentally ready, they're going to be running like in molasses the entire game, and you can see it. I mean, the Vikings after those 2 turnovers in NFC Championship last year, they were sledding uphill, and there was just no way of turning it around. I mean, they became a bit step behind on every play. So,
you're right.
So I don't think I'm sorry. I don't think. I think trap games is overused. I think they exist. I understand them, but I think that term is overused, and I like how you said though, weaponize it. That's another cliche, but that's
It's true. And they to be honest, they're probably doing that this week, saying, the circumstances aren't too dissimilar from the Buffalo game. We have a rookie quarterback coming in here. We have a team that no one I think the Vikings are double-digit favorites at home again. I'm sure they have to be saying, okay, this is I put, and this is, I'm jumping ahead here, but I put must win as the last topic of our agenda, but I don't know if I emailed it to you. Must not lose is better.
I would not say it's a must win. I agree with you 100%. I thought that's a great line. It's a must not lose.
Yeah. For all those reasons. I mean, they got to show that they're for real. They have to show that this season still has some semblance of what everyone expected it to be. There's something I'm going to add to the agenda, too, so if I'm talking and you want to look this up, we'll talk about this in a few minutes. But I don't know if it was Nate Silver's website or a different website. I'm working on an article about it, but it was breaking down the percentage chances of each team making the playoffs, and the Vikings and Packers both had like a 30% chance, and I think the Bears had like a 50% chance. I know, it's like, what? I was
look at the Bears. Look at who the Bears have played.
Yeah,
that flies in the face what I've just said for the first 10, 15 minutes. But look at who they've played and get back to me when they've beaten when they have to start playing people that the Vikings are playing. Some of those teams. And granted, they're not going to play all of them, but I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not a believer of the Bears yet. They got to show me more.
Yeah, I think they're still maybe jumping ahead a season or two. But we had a couple news things we wanted to cover really quickly. The Everson Griffin saga continues. I think there was the initial report that came out before the game last week, and was that the Vikings didn't expect him back anytime soon. That was by Adam Schefter. Zimmer named that article, or at least the author by name, and saying I think it was Schefter, but I'm just going to say that report is false. And he said a couple other things, but that's encouraging, I guess. I wonder what your take is on that.
I would say the same thing. It is encouraging. I read Sid Hartman's column this morning for the first time in a long time because he talked to Andre Patterson, and Patterson. I don't know when Sid gets this, and if it's the latest stuff, or he had just he went out to TCO and he just walked home, and so it's a few days late. I'm just kidding, Sid. But he Andre Patterson's talking about, we're just all we care about. We're not even thinking about football towards Everson. We're just thinking about getting better. The stuff that everybody was saying last week. So, this seems kind of new. It's good. It's hopeful. But I'll be honest with you.
Well, I know where you're going.
What's that?
I know where you're going.
I'm kind of out of sight, out of mind with Everson. Stephen Weatherly has played so well in his stead that when the Vikings get Griffin back, it'll be a bonus both for him and for the team, and a huge bonus. I mean, it'll make that defensive line rotation even stronger, and so I'm okay. I'm not fretting this. I want Everson to get his brain right and get his health right, mental health right, and just like the Vikings do. And when he comes back, I feel like it'll be a bonus for the team.
Yeah, Weatherly's been really good against the run too, and that's, I think. This isn't a hot take. That's super important, obviously.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see how they work with both the guys when they come back. If they kind of spell Griffin or have him more out there on during like nickel packages. But that D line is and that D line. I mean, they're during the preseason when some of the backup guys were out there. Me and my dad were talking about that backup defensive line could go head to head against any defensive line in the league with Bauer and all the guys that they have. This is more of a fun one, but I saw that in Madden after Linval Josephs' touchdown, they increased his speed rating in the game from 68 to 80, which is a huge jump. 12 points if anyone plays Madden. Usually they'll make a tweak of a couple points, but not that many. I don't know if you've ever... He really does.
It's his birthday today.
Hey. How old is he? 28?
No. 29? He's got to be close to 30, I think.
Yeah, I would think so. Speaking of the defensive line, I thought that was funny. I don't know if you ever played any of those games. Madden, Tecmo Bowl.
I played Madden once many years ago when it first came out. Thought, okay, it's a video game. See ya. It's not my jam, as you kids like to say.
Yeah, I don't play Madden either. Mainly because I got really turned off when I was in college. Was the year that Michael Vick was like a 99, and which is the high score you can get across like everything. So everyone would play as the Falcons, and they would just roll out, do like a RPO type play, and there's nothing you could do. He was like Randy Moss with the ball every single friggin' time. And now it's like, it's not even fun. It's so complicated that you actually need like John DeFilippo to be telling you what buttons to push. And I just like to, relax when I play video games, not get all worked up arguing with a 12-year-old.
Moving along.
There we go. Well, so anyway, here's a really good Madden story for you. I'm kidding. Let's get into the 5 furious facts for Friday.
There it is.
That's
5 F's.
It is.
Facts for Friday. Nice.
For Friday. I wanted to. It's better to do these first, just because there's so many ways that they tie in, especially to Madden. I'm kidding.
And they're so awesome, right? Yeah, I hear you.
The first one I do believe was the scoring offense of the Bills, or the Cardinals, and how it relates to the Bills.
The Arizona Cardinals are the second worst scoring team in the league at 13.0 points per game. That is freaking incredible. They score that few. The worst team is the Buffalo Bills.
Oh, no.
How did the Vikings lose to them? And so
no.
Joe, when we do our predictions each week, I look at these things, how the average points a team gets and gives up and all that stuff. And I look at this. This is so bad. You can't even really make a legitimate prediction. I'm giving them 10 points this time, and you're giving them 6, I think.
Yeah. What's astounding is I did put this on the agenda too. And we've talked about this a lot, about the protection of the quarterback, the new rules that seem to be like a snowball, really turning the NFL not so much into maybe flag football with the protection of the quarterback, but arena football in regards to just how many points teams have been able to put up. A lot of people are saying, the ratings are up because we've had a lot of scoring and a lot of good games over time, like high drama. I wonder, you look at a team like Arizona, and they've lost. I mean, the last 3 games they've lost. The 2 games they lost were by a total of 5 points. One was against the Bears, 16-14. The other one, I forget who that was against. Oh, it was Seahawks, and they lost by a field goal. What are they doing wrong? They have these weapons on offense. You think bringing in a Sam Bradford, who proved, when healthy, that he can really move the ball. You look back at that Saints game with the weapons the Vikings had, then you look at a team that has J.J. Nelson as a deep threat. You have Larry Fitzgerald, who apparently hasn't been getting the ball at all. David Johnson, who is not being allowed to run up the middle. Is that the offensive coordinator's fault, or what is going on?
Well, I guess I touched on this a little bit earlier. I don't know, because I haven't analyzed their offense to that degree, but I suspect there's some growing pains there with a new head coach and new staff and new quarterback, and they got to figure each other out. I know Larry Fitzgerald's problem might be that he's not getting open because he's been hampered, I think, by a hammy all season.
Okay.
Playing through it, so I think that may have some effect there. But they're 5 games in, and they've been split about equal time between 2 quarterbacks, one old one and one young one, and that's the Vikings are kind of went through that last year, when they had started out with Bradford, and then they had to all of a sudden bring Keenum in. His first game wasn't that great, and he started finding. Shermer had to figure out what Keenum could do, and he did, and so at the same time, for out there, they've got Josh Rosen, who's got a big arm and can move, but certainly a little bit different than Bradford. So they've got to. Not only do they have to figure out what he can do, he's got to figure out the NFL game too. So, I mean, I should they be giving the ball to David Johnson more, perhaps, but maybe they have offensive line problems. I haven't looked at it that deeply, but
I did, and it looks like they actually are. The line is known to be one of the better run blocking lines, and they're not as well known for pass protection. That's one of my 3 to 5 ways that the Cardinals and Vikings can win for later. And so I latch on to, I think Luke mentioned the last game they only ran David Johnson up the middle once, and clearly he's a guy.
They ran him only up the middle, and they weren't getting him out. That's what he said.
Is that what he said? Okay, because that would have been completely insane.
Yes, I mean I think that's makes sense. That guy can move. Get him out in the
flat.
But I don't know what's going on. I'm just glad I bypassed him in fantasy.
Me too. Even though I did trade Alvin Kamara for Le'Veon Bell, who, according to one guy from Fansided.com, could be a Viking, despite the fact that we have Dalvin Cook.
That's just not true.
That was. I don't. I've written some articles that are way out there defending Mike Wallace during his time here, which I will stand by that article. Dagnabbit.
That's something different, Joe. I mean, there's no way. I mean, you texted that to me yesterday, and I just said bull crap, because there's no way the Vikings would want to. They've got Dalvin Cook. He's coming back. He's going to be fine. They've got a running back court or a group that they like. Thing two, the last thing they want is some malcontent coming in here, and I don't even think they'd have room on the goddamn salary cap to bring him in.
Yeah,
why people just throw that stuff out there to get clicks and see what sticks, and this is below BS.
It's similar to Adrian Peterson's comment about how the team is missing him. It's not understanding why the Vikings are one of the worst running teams. It's not because of Dalvin Cook or Latavius Murray necessarily. It's more the line and the games, just the way the games have been. They've had to score points and they've had to keep up, especially against the Rams and Bills. But yeah, I knew that article would irk you as a guy who hates stuff like that. I think the second furious fact is about the running teams. They're the 1 and 2 worst running teams in the league, which is a surprise considering, again, David Johnson's stature, especially as a fantasy back, as just a really high quality running back to begin with. Do you think that the Vikings will use this game to establish the run? I don't want to get into the same trap that I remember the guys on K-Fan before the Bills game were talking about resting Cousins and Thielen and Diggs in the third and fourth quarter, talking about, like it was they locked up their playoff spot and it was the last game of the season or something. But you have to think that if there's a week that, DeFilippo being, I'm no one in the, at TCO wants to run the ball more than I do, and that he'll try to at least establish that a little bit more than
that's jumping ahead here a little bit. But the second one is, they are the 2 worst rushing teams at 65.8 and 64.6 yards respectively. And the Vikings are the 13th best rushing defense, giving up 99.4 yards per game. So, I guess this one for me was a defensive one. It's the opportunity the Vikings should take away David Johnson and then rush the passer, which is not a hot take, as they say. But, it seems like teams have had success doing that this year, because you shut him down and their passing has been struggling to this point. So that's the key. The next one is the Cards are the 31st worst team in the league against the rush. So, with 142.4 yards per game. So that means, yes, this is where you were kind of going with, the running game. Dalvin Cook was limited on Wednesday, and he was full go on Thursday. So he's going to play. And you had put on the agenda regarding should they even play him? Well, the way Zimmer has always handled it, that's what I'll go back to. Whether he should or shouldn't is beside the point. Zimmer says if I'm told they're good to go, they're going in. And that's just the way he handles it. That's the way it should be. Shouldn't be any of this, we got to get him in there because he's our best player and we won't win without him or anything like it. No, if he's good to go, he plays. He's their starter and he'll play. He will be on a pitch count, though. And as an owner of Dalvin Cook in one of my little teams, I'm not happy to hear that, but there we go.
Real quick question. Do you remember, I'm looking at the Pro Football Reference.com 2017 defensive rankings, and I was wondering, it has the Vikings, I think, is the second best overall rushing defense in regards to total yards allowed, and then fifth in regards to yards per attempt at 3.7. I was wondering if the rushing defense was better because of Weatherly or not, and I couldn't remember how good they were against the run last year, but it seems like it's about the same. Anyway, yeah.
I don't know. I just think, last week you all talked about the Vikings, trying to get their running game going, but we knew that was, and they did to a certain extent, a very small extent, but they improved. But it was a fool's errand because they're going against the best defense against the rest of the league.
The opposite.
This week they got a shot. They're going against one of the worst in the league, so you're going to see them try to run even a little bit more, whether it's Dalvin or Latavius Murray or one of the other two dudes. So I think you will see them really trying to get their running game some confidence in this one, and hopefully not to the detriment of all those receivers who are fun to watch.
Yeah, and the confidence is a big thing because we've talked about Dalvin Cook maybe not having that confidence in his knee, especially for a guy who's so well known for his cuts. You've talked about your experience with knee injuries and talking about Jay Ajayi and him coming back from tearing his ACL and still playing last week because you can't really do any more damage. It's just more of a lateral movement thing, and that's
right.
You have to think that's the number one worst thing that could happen to a guy like Dalvin Cook just based on how he runs.
Right.
Especially with it being a non-contact injury, maybe he's afraid that it could happen at any time. that's something that would eat away at my brain if I was playing.
A knucklehead like Adrian Peterson and work so hard and come back, and you're easily convince yourself that you're Superman again.
Yeah.
That's his mentality, and just go out there. I mean, Dalvin has said all the right things, through all summer long, and then he started getting kind of, a little frustrated with the continued questions, and he says, it's my new knee. This is it. This is good. I'm good to go. I'm good to go. And I think, it's one thing to say it, it's another thing to believe it. And I still think he's running a little bit tentative, but he's also not had any opportunities.
Yeah.
He could take off if he ever got to the second level, but this line just doesn't open enough holes for him, and he's not going to bang through it like Latavius Murray. I love his attitude as a runner because he's a bull in a china shop. Because if the hole's not there, I'm going to push my way and grind till it gets there. I think Dalvin did that last year, but I think it's your brain affects your body, and you're going to be a little tentative until you know what the new normal is and know what you can do.
Did you put any stock into some of the people writing about maybe the Vikings picking up that former first-round pick out of the Giants, Eric Flowers?
I think if they had, they would have already done it. But
okay.
Shermer and what's his name, Zimmer, are obviously buddies, and you probably figure the Vikings put a call into Shermer and said, "What's going on there?" And he probably said, "You don't want this headache." That's what I would. Because a guy, he's a former first round pick, just
2015, yeah.
Jeez, I mean that seems like, if he is a viable tackle, you'd think the whole league would be jumping on it. But he must be toxic. The whole thing over there seems pretty toxic. I don't know if you saw the Giants.
I watched it, and I wanted to almost talk about that a little bit because it reminded me so much of. I'm trying to think of the name of the offensive coordinator the Vikings had. I think he works for the Saints now. He worked for the Seahawks for a while. He was here during the Randy ratio, and there was a point earlier in the game where it was first and goal from like the 3 or 4, and they have what's his face, Barkley, who was running really strong, and they threw the ball 3 times, and it reminded me of the Randy ratio when Linehan is the guy I'm thinking of. He used to do the same thing. Why not just hand the ball off to the guy who they're having trouble stopping? It just doesn't. I don't know if Shermer is, trying too hard or overthinking it, but it was brutal.
He's probably got that doofus OBJ in his ear too.
Yeah, he's nuts. Yeah. He's the Kanye West of the NFL at this point, as far as I'm concerned. What's next?
Part of this too, I think. They obviously made the right pick taking Barkley. I think he's incredible. But I said last year and the year before, I said Eli's done. I mean, if you see him back there, he looks scared. He gets rid of the ball so quickly. I mean, is there anybody that throws the ball into the dirt at his lineman's feet more than that guy?
Yeah,
he does it all the time. And there's part of him he probably doesn't want to get injured on the way out. They should have moved on from him a couple of years ago. I've always thought.
And he looks, so. I don't want to. This is not a pot shot. I don't know how else to describe this, but he looks like such a doofus on the sidelines. Like he just his mouth is open. He just looks confused all the time, and that's not the look you want from a guy. You got to wonder at what point are they gonna say, okay, you got us these 2 Super Bowls. You stopped. You beat the Patriots when they were undefeated, but yeah, there's a youth movement going on, man, and you're not part of it.
That's from Peyton picking on him all those years,
Pretty much. I think the last one was the Vikings' third best passing team in the.
There's a couple more. I'll go them here. The Vikings are the third best passing team at 321.4 yards per game, while the Cards are the 13th at passing defense, giving up 246 a game. So. The Vikings' strength going against the Cardinals' relative strength because that they're not very good against the run and they're better against pass with Patrick Peterson. So that even leans even more towards the Vikings being trying their running game this week. So I just wanted to say that. And the final one was, I just had to throw this in there. I think this is a great stat. Cardinals passed for 146.2 yards per game, which is 31st in the league. Adam Thielen has 117.2 yards receiving per game.
Wow.
Yeah,
I missed that one.
Right there, the difference would be between these two teams. And
who's worse than them?
I think it's Buffalo. I mean, they're down there.
Yeah, probably. Because that's brutal.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And we talked about. I mean, we just said this, but like in this league, where you're getting these high-flying offenses, and you have Larry Fitzgerald, you have a guy like J.J. Nelson, who's a burner. Even just throwing the ball to David Johnson, you would think, it's a mess down there. And I wonder. I'll be interested to see. I mean, granted, I understand why they made the move. Why not make it? The season is out of your hands and everything. But I wonder how much of that was actually Bradford's fault versus scheme. Or I did write down a note that one of my 3 ways that the Cardinals could beat the Vikings is if they stop dropping passes. I think that's been a big part of their problem.
Right.
And on the flip side, maybe the Vikings getting some turnovers because of that. But they just seem to be in a funk, despite the fact that they've only lost again by 5 points over the last 3 weeks.
Talking the Cards?
Yeah.
So, I can't. I'm with you. I think it was more institutional and offensive line that was the problem for Bradford. He 2 years ago, he didn't have a great offensive line in front of him. He set a record for
completion percentage.
Thank you. And he still knows how to find the right, find his receivers, and he's got some receivers down there that can catch the ball. But you look at their stats, and I had this in my game preview. Their receiving stats are just horrid, and it's got to be. I think it's more the time that Bradford had and the learning curve of this young gun Josh Rosen. So I think in time they will be better, but it's going to be too late for them. Their season is pretty much over. It will be after the Vikings win this week.
What, knock on wood, what has been have you heard anything from Zimmer or anyone about Rosen? Or you mentioned that he has a big arm.
Yeah, I got that from Zimmer. He and I had lunch the other day, and we were talking about some stuff. No, I'm kidding.
Is he beyond that second part of that? Is he mobile at all? Should we worry about a Josh Allen type situation again?
Yep. He can move, and he's a big dude too. He can get outside the pocket, and he likes to. And so, I think we're starting to see that the new prototype for the quarterback these days, like Wentz, starting with a guy like him, or even Cam Newton, where they're big, strong arm, they can run, they like to run, it gives you a lot of weapons, and I think he's another one in that mold once he figures out the league, and he will be a nice asset, if you got David Johnson in the backfield, and I got to figure this is Larry Fitzgerald's last year, very darn close to it, so they're going to have to revamp their receivers a little bit, and if you say, like you said, the offensive line is pretty decent, as soon as their team figures it out, they should be back in it. But it's with a rookie quarterback, he's got to figure out how to play in this league.
Yeah, watching Wentz last night too, he was making some dangerous slides.
Yes, he was dangerous slides and dangerous decisions. He throws a lot. Joe, don't you know? Even that in the last week's game against the Vikings. He will, go down fighting and throw those balls out of there when he's falling down and getting tackled rather than just, and he got by with a couple of them last night, that should have been picked off or something. I don't know if that's just trying to do too much or what is he, if it's what he did last year and can't quite do this year, but
yeah, big time. Yeah, that concerns me a little bit. Granted, the Bills game was there was a lot of errors there. They got great field position, but I think people have said this before. The kryptonite for the Vikings defense has been mobile quarterbacks. And so it'll be interesting to see how they handle that. I don't think he's at the level of requiring a spy or anything, but it's something to keep an eye on, definitely.
Keep a spy on. Yeah.
Ooh, I like that. Do you think, speaking of spies, do you think Patrick Peterson will be covering Thielen, or?
Yep, that's why I took the under.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I think. I think he's gonna make a concerted bet. I don't know if he'll do follow him all over the field, but I think wasn't Luke saying that Peterson doesn't go into the slot too often, so maybe the Vikings will put Thielen in the slot just to get him away from it, But I see the string of 5 consecutive games start a season with 100 yards to come to an end this week, because I think that they're gonna clamp down on him a little bit. He got so much buzz this week, so it might be a big game for old Stephon Diggs.
Yeah, it's definitely pick your poison. I wonder how much Larry Fitzgerald moving to the slot as he got older, and then people realizing, wow, you put a big-bodied receiver in the slot, and maybe get away from the prototypical Wes Welker type slot receiver, and these guys create matchup problems,
right?
For teams. And I think Thielen obviously has been taking a ton of advantage of that. How much have you, with Fitzgerald being such a local guy, I think he grew up only a few blocks from where I'm at right now, over in South Minneapolis. Have you had an opportunity to meet him or go to any of his camps or anything? He seems like a good dude.
He does seem like a good dude, and I have not. I've always wanted to. I've spent plenty of time with his dad, and his dad is, Larry Fitzgerald Sr., and a journalist in town, and writes for newspapers
for MinPost, I think.
Pardon me?
I think he wrote for MinPost for a while.
Yeah. Oh, did he? But he is. He's with the Spokesman. I know that, and I've always seen him at golf outings through my work with the Minnesota Golf Association, and actually rode the cart with him. And I asked him a couple of years ago, is Larry finally going to retire? And he looked at me like I was nuts. And to his credit, he was right, because he's played a couple more years. But you got to figure it's coming pretty darn soon, But who knows?
It would have been nice for him to play for the Vikings for 1 year.
That would have been cool. I would have liked it, but he's the kind of guy that's going to be loyal to the team that draft. I can see that. I can see him not wanting to.
Yeah.
I have no animus towards him for not coming back here, but it would, we Minnesotans love our own, so it would have been nice.
I thought a cool way to talk about Cousins and the start that he's had. Outside of, I just really want to quickly vent to you about this. I was at the liquor store last night, and there was a bunch of people wearing Viking stuff, myself included, and this guy started just ranting about Cousins and how bad the team has been since he got here. And how he's basically...
Before he brought booze or after?
I know. I should have been like, dude, I'm not serving you. Clearly you're under the influence. And I go, what are you talking about, man? He's on pace to break all these records. And he goes, interception records. What did he have? 3-4 interceptions against the Bills and 4 fumbles? I'm like, Jesus. So I'm just getting that out of the way, because I do interact with people or I get in these weird conversations with, I think, the bottom rung of the Vikings fandom, and it drives me crazy.
For a future guest spot on the show.
I'm going to give him his own show. But I wanted to say, look at Bradford and Keenum. I know that the fans in Denver are a lot like the Vikings have been, in that they love the backup quarterback. And that's actually one of the highest search result things that we've had. I've been looking at our Google search results. It has been for Trevor Siemian from people in Denver. Yeah, they seem to want to keep tabs on him for whatever reason. But it seems like, money, if you want to include the money or otherwise, the Vikings made the right move in regards to Cousins over, Bradford's already benched. Keenum might end up being benched, even though he's put up some good numbers. He's had some picks, which he kind of got away with last year. And so, just in general, what maybe your thoughts are for this weekend with Cousins, if he's going to continue to put up big numbers. Hopefully, maybe the running game will come in and he doesn't have to. But it seems like they made the right decision. I mean, he's doing everything right outside of a couple fumbles.
My goodness.
What a loaded question.
Why do you do this to me? Anyway, I came in. I mean, you were on the Cousins bandwagon from the get-go, and more power to you. I was cautiously optimistic, and I said, I had not seen and paid enough attention to him. I thought, he was middle of the road because the team never went anywhere, and he never got, there was all the crud that he had going on with RG3 and everything and his owner, and blah, 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 blah. So I just said, oh, okay, whatever. And all that said, the guy comes in here and has done what he's done. The only thing that you can still complain about for him is, at the very minuscule level, is his paycheck. He took up a lot of money, and whether he's making it or not, it's still a true fact. He's eaten up plenty of the room on the salary cap. That's all you can say about it. But
yeah,
God, the position requires it. And the guy has stood up and done it. He had one bad game where he had 2 fumbles. He's had 2 interceptions on the season. Where this guy gets 3 or 4, I have no idea. And I think both of those interceptions were on. At least one of them was on Treadwell. It was in his hand. So I can't remember what the other one was, but he's not throwing any bad passes. Where Case Keenum is. Case Keenum has reverted to the mean. He had his own mean. He's back to where he was. I mean, he'll make some plays, but he's also throwing a lot of picks out there, and they are bemoaning the decision that John Elway made. I liked Keenum. I loved what he did back here. I was all for keeping him but then the more you heard the reasons they let him go was that they only gave him part of the offense. They didn't let him go downfield much. They knew his reading ability was limited, whereas Cousins is not. All the reasons, I understand the move completely. And I don't get how anybody is still crabbing about this guy, about Cousins. They're just not paying attention. Doesn't make any sense to me, Joe.
No, it doesn't at all. And I do think there is the statistics bear this out. And I really don't. I've made a conscious effort not to really piss off any of our readers or insult them. I might write articles that they disagree with, but I will openly engage in conversations with them. Even if I don't agree with them, because I think that's a cool aspect of the site. That having been said, the statistics do bear out that there's a large amount of people that really just read headlines and or focus really hardly on the negative. Granted, that Buffalo game was a disaster, but I mean, you can't ask this guy who has been so tough, hanging in the pocket, realizing that maybe because of the new rules, he'll take a hit, but not a terrible career-ending type, season-ending type hit. But he's done everything that you can ask him to do.
Yes.
And I feel really confident about my latching of my wagon to Cousins. I do worry about maybe him getting hurt at some point. But
I'm sorry, that's why a funny image of you and your little wagon behind him,
like a radio flyer.
Yes. So you're back there with a little pendant, going, "Go Kurt, go Kurt."
That's where I kind of question that statistic with the Vikings having a 1 in 3 chance to make the playoffs. Like, if this defense can even limit teams to 21 points instead of the 15.8 that they had last season, you have to think that this offense is putting up points. Without a run game, and if that gets going too, that's where the Eagles game step in the right direction. I mean, I didn't see the fourth quarter last night, but it was 31-13, I think, when I turned the game off. We beat that team at home. They won the Super Bowl last year. We hung in there with the Rams, who I think beat the Cardinals. They shut them out for sure. I don't remember if it was 31-0 or what have you. You have to be really confident, despite all the negative stuff, that, okay, at this point in the season, if you were to tell me that before the season started that one of the two main units was struggling and trying to get its footing, I would have picked the offense. I would have thought, new offensive coordinator, new quarterback, you got Dalvin Cook coming back. The offensive line is a huge question mark. And they're flourishing. It's the defense, which is encouraging because despite all my hyperbolic apocalyptica in regards to Zimmer being on the hot seat, if you have to trust one guy to figure it out, it's Zimmer. I mean, that's I am a lot more confident than I was a week ago, and I do think that this team is still in the running for something special. I don't think that's something that can be disputed at this point.
Number 2 passer in the league as far as yards. Touchdowns. He is number
11 touchdowns?
He's got 11 touchdowns, and he's down to tied for 7th. He was up to 6th earlier. I wrote in my post-game wrap, one of the last 2, I think it was the last one, this guy is the Vikings MVP so far. It's so clear. It's so obvious. It just boggles my mind. I mean, yes, Thielen and Diggs are, if you can push them and mold them into one Oreo cookie, they're, you could call them the MVP, right? They've been playing great. But Cousins has been delivering his passes to these guys under duress and in front of getting hit. And, like I said the other night, the knock on him coming in was that he folded under pressure, that he was happy feet, a little bit nervous and throwing interceptions. He's not doing that. He's got, what has he got here? He's got, like I said, 2 interceptions so far. The fumbles, you can knock on him a little bit, and you can throw some of the and plenty of the Buffalo game on him, but I'm not going to throw the whole thing. And that team was not ready to play, and they did not show up from the get-go. So, he kept them in the game single-handedly against the Rams. He very much won this game in Philadelphia. He put up great numbers in the first game, his first game as a Viking against what's-her-face, and he dueled Aaron Rodgers, albeit a hobbled Aaron Rodgers in Lambeau, and could have won that game. So people just stop. He's the guy. He's going to be the quarterback around here. I mean,
for a long time,
years for sure. And Zimmer loves what he's got. He's got complete and total confidence in this guy. And Zimmer's all of a sudden feeling like, I got to get my defense to match this offense is playing. So,
where do you think he is in the MVP picture? Because my 2 bold predictions for the season was that Cousins was going to be a top 5 MVP candidate, and then I said I really want to say top 3, but I don't want to.
I can't say that yet. I was talking about he's the team MVP.
No, but do you think that that's expanded a little bit to the rest of the league? You'd have to think so. Without the run game. And I've said this twice this season now, but there's been 2 Thielen touchdowns that were some of the most beautiful touchdowns I've seen in my 34 years as a Vikings fan. Both to Thielen, the one where he backed into the end zone, and then the one last week, which I think came after that roughing the passer call, where he dropped that in there without a hair one way that would have been blocked by the corner. So it's been exciting. We've said this too, objectively entertaining games.
Absolutely.
What else can you ask for?
The one that scares me a little bit is how he calls it chuck and duck.
Yeah.
If that's actually true, if it's not a little bit more planned out and deliberate, that just concerns me just a little.
I'm so glad you said that, because you brought that up on the Purple Journal podcast. I wrote it down, and I was going to bring that up, and I forgot to. That is a very scary thing to have to say. He did
when he said it. He kind of laughed it off. But I think it's part of it. I mean, he knows he's going to get hit. He's hanging in there to the last minute, and he's making great throws with it. But man, because if he's just chucking it, and then like I play golf, I hit and hope. If he's just hitting and hoping, we're probably inflating his value a little bit more than there is. I hope that's not the case. But he's done it so often already this year that I'm inclined to believe that, and he's kind of a guy that is not a braggadocious guy. So I a humble guy. So I'm going to believe that he's not going to sit there and float his own boat. He's kind of being self-effacing with that remark. So
yeah, well, knock on wood for that too. I have a couple keys to win the game. They kind of go one way or the other. The first was they obviously have to establish a run and stop David Johnson. We've talked about that. It would be great to see Cook just really come out and have 20 to 25 touches. But I mean, you think he's still going to be on a pitch count?
I think so. Yeah, I mean they don't want to re-injure that hammy, don't you think?
Yeah, it's like Zimmer said, maybe if they're ready, then they're ready, and maybe they'll do that. But the last thing they need is a nagging injury for the rest of the season. The dream or the hope would be that Latavius Murray does well enough to win. Maybe he doesn't have to play at all. But again, this is a great opportunity to establish something moving forward. So I guess put him out there on a pitch count, see how it works. Turnover battle is big. The Vikings have been great in this regard. On the other side of that, I put down that the Cardinals have to stop dropping passes or tipping them. A lot of people, not to keep bringing up this bottom rung Vikings fan conspiracy theory stuff I get wrapped up in at 3 a.m. But a lot of people have said the Vikings have gotten lucky with these turnovers, which is,
That's luck.
I guess you can call it that way, but good teams have good luck for a reason,
Yeah, they're in position to be the beneficiary of that luck.
You can't call like Linval Josephs. They got the pressure and forced the fumble. You could say it's lucky because it landed right in his arms, but they still had to scheme and execute that perfectly for that to happen, and they did. So I'm not a big luck guy unless it's bad luck, which I think I found I'm going to plug my pseudo-documentary about the Ed Thorpe Trophy. I do believe I found the source of all the Vikings' bad luck, and it's that missing trophy. So the other was to utilize Larry Fitzgerald. I think he had 2 targets last week, and for the Vikings to shut him down in the slot. Yeah, that's been the fans are getting a little tired of it down there in regards to.
I don't think he can get open. He's hobbled.
Yeah, and there's a lot of tape there too. When he first moved to the slot, it was like a lot of mismatches and like, what the hell do we do with this guy? But I think teams have been able to figure that out. Especially, he's clearly getting up there in age. The final one too is to stop Chandler Jones, their defensive end, who I guess had a relatively big game in San Francisco. Turnover battle stuff. Hopefully he doesn't force any fumbles there. And just a blitz early and often against Rosen. Get him rattled. Please, God. Don't let him run all over the field.
Rashad Hill's going to be blocking him, I think.
That's a really good point. What have you heard about Riley Reef?
Hasn't practiced yet this week as of Wednesday or Thursday, and so it's not a good sign. I think they probably want to get him healthy. And, that this is just what I'm hearing, but Rashad Hill is saying it's going to be better for him. He'll have a whole week to practice that left tackle, whereas last week they just threw him in there. And he's, that's a transition. You have to change your footwork a little bit and, be able to do it. So they could be going with Rashad Hill at left and Brian O'Neill at the right tackle. So I've been.
Why wouldn't they use Brian O'Neill at the left tackle? Wasn't that what he played in college?
They probably aren't ready for him to do that. I think they obviously have more confidence in Hill. Hill went in for him at left tackle this week when Arif went down. So I think they that's what they will go with. That's probably what they're practicing with all week. And what's his name is probably not big enough. He's probably not big enough over there. So let him handle.
Not yet, anyway.
So I've been pleased with how he's played. He's not been making. He gets burned or gives up pressure or something from time to time. It's going to happen. He's a rookie, and he's learning the position for the most part in the NFL level. So I'm pleased with what he's doing, and the fact that they have confidence in Hill, well, that's good. But you bring up that point about Eric Flowers. It's worth considering, but I don't think they're going to.
I think you're right. I think it's speaking of cliches. I think. they do their due diligence. They kick the tires, especially with the connection that they have to that coaching staff.
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to me, just on paper, with his bringing him over because he's got some familiarity with Jones. Even though they, if he's playing, well, they could end up actually playing next to one another. But you have to think, like we said, if he's a first round pick and he's cut, there's something going on. But if it's a situation where it's not talent, it's mental. A lot of NFL coaches love that dynamic. They always think they can fix that guy. That's why a lot of these guys get a second or third chance. That's why Cordero Patterson's still in the league.
Can't teach size, speed, and pure athletic ability, but you can teach him technique and what have you. So,
and maybe he thinks, this isn't. If I want to keep making millions of dollars, I need to fix this. You never know. Get him for dirt cheap, bring him in. Maybe I wouldn't be against it.
Me neither.
Trey Waynes should be back, and I wonder how that will shuffle up the corners. They seem to play better. I heard some people on Twitter saying, letting Mike Hughes play on the outside more, which is where he's more comfortable, was a benefit.
Well, Zimmer said he got the whole week to practice coming in last week at corner outside, whereas he has been to this point practicing both inside and outside each week. So he got to focus on the one, and that helped his performance. Trey Waynes talked to the media on Wednesday as much as Trey Waynes talks to the media, and never pleased with the prospect of having to do it, but I think he was forced to go out there. And
what do you attribute that to?
It's just who he is. He's not a jerk. He's not bad, but his answers are short and clipped, and they're done with a purpose to let everybody know, this is like pulling teeth, so as soon as we can get out of the dentist chair, please let me. But he said, he goes, I'm ready, I'm full go, I'm ready to go. I'm out of the protocol, concussion protocol, so he will get his starting spot back, and I think you'll see a lot of Hughes in there, inside, and they've got a number of good guys who can play the positions now. I think they'll be fine. So it's good to have Trey Waynes back, as you want numbers, but because I don't want him to be supplanted. I want to have the Vikings have a full complement of really good players at that position.
Definitely. We have a couple minutes left. Let's talk about our predictions. We do this every Wednesday on Wednesday night. If you guys want to tune in live about 8:30, 8:45, we'll keep you in the loop on social media. Joe also does write a game preview, which, full disclosure, I try not to cheat and see what his score is and do some sort of Price is Right style.
Emphasis on the try.
Try, exactly. And we also do like an over-under thing with Luke Braun, which is really cool. If you want to know him, check that out. But we can talk about our game predictions. We've alluded to them a little bit. I can go first and just say really quickly that I do think that, as opposed to this being a trap game, I think it's very well could be a get-right game. They did a lot of that against Philly. A lot of people that I mentioned in the Purple Journal podcast that maybe thought that I was inducted into the hyper-negative Vikings fan group after my Zimmer hot seat article, which I promise I won't bring up next week.
If you do, I'm done. I'm not showing up on Tuesday.
That's your way of sending a signal. You're our Le'Veon Bell. They were like, "What game were you watching?" The team's still horrible. The defense is still horrible, and to me it was. Yeah, it wasn't a perfect game, but it was a good step in the right direction, almost in every regard. And I think that this game is that get-right game where the defense might really realize what happened against the Bills and really want to show the league that they're for real. And so that's why I chose, I think it was 31-6. I know it was 6 points.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was 31 or 34-6.
Sure, I'm sure it was. No, maybe it was. I thought it wasn't 27. No.
Maybe it was 27. You're right. It was, because I do think they might get up early, and then really try to get that run game going. And so hopefully, it's we're launching a new type of show that no one's ever done before. Me, Tyler Haig of Vikings Territory, and Luke Braun of Purple PTSD and Vikings Territory. Every week it'll be me and Tyler with hopefully a different guest. We're going to do live commentary of the game. Not necessarily play-by-play since you're watching it too, but just, little tidbits of information and funny asides and all sorts of stuff. So hopefully it'll be a really calm, chill first game for us. You can follow us if you see this.
You'll be there.
I'll be there.
No, that's what I'm saying. It won't be chill and calm.
I know. I nervously pace during these shows. God, I'll be on the roof. But yeah, check that out. But yeah, I'll say 27-6 Vikings.
I was wrong earlier. I thought I said that Arizona might score 10 points. I went back and forth between 10 and 13 and ended up on 13, 24-13 Vikings, and which was right around the line of 11 points at the time. But I'm a little nervous about that 13 points for the Cardinals because that seems almost a little high. The only thing I see happening is Minnesota gets up. And then they start going into, milk the clock mode, and they don't, keep trying to drive down. I wish they would. I wish they'd just manhandle somebody once. But I shouldn't say that. I just want them to win. And so I think, the Cardinals are playing a little bit better. They scored. I think they put up 28 points last week for the first time this season.
Yeah.
So they have the potential, but the Vikings defense is starting to figure themselves out after tripping all over themselves most of the season.
And is it just me, or did I saw flashes of prevent defense last week? I felt like what year is this?
They went into drain the clock mode. They sure did.
Gave up the middle of the field a lot.
Absolutely, and Wentz marched right down and made everybody nervous. I mean Zimmer must have just been so giddy after that 52-yard field goal he forgot.
Yeah. Finally, a kicker that can pull himself out of the abyss.
Exactly.
We will be live chatting the game as well. So if you're not listening to us talk, we are also chatting. Joe will be there. We do a pregame show as well. We're basically taking ESPN on full bore apparently. So check out the pregame show. Check out the live chat. Check out the live game commentary. And continue to check out this show. Joe will be, for those of you that don't know, Joe is the editor of the Minnesota Golf Magazine, so he gets to do a bunch of cool golf-related stuff. Although I do question why they're opening a golf course in October.
Well, they were late with it. They were supposed to be open last year, so I think the weather delayed it over at Braemar, and so I think they're wanting to give a little sneak peek. It's going to be open, ready to go next spring, and I think they want some publicity about that before it.
You get to play it?
Yeah, I'll be out there on Tuesday. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
One of these days, and I don't want you to lose any remaining respect that you may have for me. I did letter in golf in high school, but that was because all the hockey team guys played golf just for something to do and for free range balls and all that.
Smart. Greatest gig to get in school, free golf.
And that makes me a little sad that I think they're still planning to get rid of the Hiawatha Golf Course because I spent a lot of time there. But yeah, we should. Speaking of live stream, we could live stream our golf match.
Well, I'll play golf with you. I'll put that on the calendar. About live streaming it,
Yeah, I don't think I want people to see that because
I want to see it.
I think I shoot about a 70 on 9 holes, which it's always good when you turn your scorecard in during a tournament for the person to laugh and say, "But really, what's your real score?" I got a lot of that. But yeah, thanks for everyone that's been listening, for all the support. We will be back next Tuesday with a guest host, and then next Friday also potentially with a big guest. So this has been Morning Joe's. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next week, hopefully with some happy news. Skål.